in the heart of the ancient world, before the hum of engines or the glow of electric light, there existed a land where winter ruled with quiet power. Snow blanketed the trees, rivers froze to glass, and the air was sharp with the breath of the northern winds. And yet, beneath that endless sky, the Native American tribes slept soundly. They did not fear the cold. They did not resist it. They lived with it. And when night fell and the stars shimmered over the white earth, they would drift to sleep, often in less than a minute, their minds calm, their bodies warm, and their spirits at peace with the land that cradled them. To understand how they achieved this, we must begin with their greatest teacher, nature. For the tribes, nature was not an enemy to be conquered. It was family. The wind was the breath of the Great Spirit. The earth was their mother, and the snow, though cold and merciless, was a reminder of balance, that every hardship carries wisdom. Across the continent, from the icy tundras of Alaska to the snow-covered plains of Dakota, tribes developed different ways to face the cold nights. Each method, unique, practical, spiritual, reflected thousands of years of harmony with the elements. Let us first travel north to the home of the Inuit and Yupik peoples. Here, the nights lasted for months. Temperatures could fall below minus 40 degrees, and yet inside their snow houses, igloos, families slept in comfort. You see, snow itself is a miracle of insulation. Each flake traps air, and when pressed together, those tiny pockets hold heat like a thick blanket. Inside an igloo, the temperature could rise to 20 or 30 degrees warmer than outside, simply from body heat and the small flame of a seal oil lamp. Imagine that for a moment. A soft glow flickering on curved white walls, the sound of breathing, calm and steady. Children curled up under caribou furs. Outside, the storm rages, but inside, peace. Meanwhile, far to the south, in the lands of the Lakota, Dakota, and Cheyenne, the teepee became both home and shelter. A teepee was more than a tent. It was a masterpiece of design. The conical shape broke the wind, the slanted walls let snow slide off, and the open smoke hole at the top carried away the heat of the fire in a perfect balance. Never too much, never too little. At night, stones were heated by the fire, then wrapped in hide or fur and placed near the sleepers. The floor was layered, first with grass or pine needles, then animal hides, then thick robes of buffalo. The result? Warmth that lasted until morning. But warmth was only part of it. The tribes also mastered the mental art of rest. They practiced what modern science now calls body scanning, though they never used that term. They would lie still, breathe deeply, and thank the spirits for the day. They felt the rhythm of the fire's crackle, the heart's slow pulse, the wind's sigh outside the teepee. Within 60 seconds, sometimes less, they were asleep. And so, their nights became not just times of rest, but of connection. The elders said that dreams were visits from ancestors, that the cold helped purify the spirit, that when your body lies close to the earth, you hear her heartbeat. This wisdom guided every breath. When dawn came pale and silent, they would wake slowly. They'd rise from beneath the furs, add kindling to the fire, and step out to greet the morning frost. No alarm clocks, no rush, only the rhythm of nature. The cold did not bother them because they did not fight it. They welcomed it, listened to it, and lived with it as part of the eternal balance of life. As the flames flicker lower and the snow continues to fall outside, imagine yourself there, lying beneath a blanket of fur, hearing the quiet hum of wind against the tippy walls. The air smells of smoke and pine. You exhale slowly and drift into sleep. Because this harmony between man and nature is the secret that allowed the Native Americans to fall asleep in only 60 seconds. Soft flute fades out. Sound of fire continues for ambience. The night deepens across the Great Plains. The snow has stopped falling, and the world lies still beneath the moon's quiet light. Somewhere, among the sleeping trees and rolling hills, the people rest inside their teepees and lodges. The fire burns low. Its glow flickers across faces. Calm, peaceful, timeless. How do they find such rest, such balance, in a world of ice and silence? The answer lies not only in the warmth of their shelters, but in the warmth of their spirit. For the Native American tribes, the night was never something to fear. It was sacred, a time when the spirit world drew close, when the winds whispered old stories and the stars carried messages from their ancestors. To fall asleep was not simply to close one's eyes. It was to enter a doorway, to step from the world of waking into the realm of dreams where wisdom waited patiently. And so, every movement before sleep was intentional. Every sound, every breath carried meaning. Inside the teepee, the floor was alive with texture, layers of grass, woven mats, and furs that held the memory of warmth. The smell of wood smoke drifted upward, twirling lazily toward the smoke hole at the top. Outside, the wind pressed against the hide walls, but inside, it felt like the world had exhaled and finally gone still. A mother hummed softly to her child. A hunter, weary from the day, stretched his legs and whispered a prayer of thanks. The fire popped, sending sparks that glowed and vanished. Tiny stars born and gone in the same breath. This was their bedtime ritual, not rushed, not forced, but part of life's slow rhythm. Some tribes believed the fire itself was alive, a living spirit that offered warmth, guidance, and protection. The Cherokee called it the eternal flame, the heart of the home. It was said that if you listened closely, the fire could speak. Each crackle and sigh was a reminder that the world itself was awake, breathing with you. And when the last embers dimmed to orange and red, that was the signal, the time to sleep. But first came gratitude, a quiet moment before lying down, eyes closed, heads bowed slightly. No words needed, just the silence of thankfulness. Gratitude for the hunt, for the fire, for family and breath. Gratitude even for the cold, for it made warmth meaningful. In that stillness, they slowed their breathing. Long inhale, slow exhale. Their hearts matched the rhythm of the earth. Within a minute, sometimes less, they slipped into sleep. Modern scientists might call this meditation or parasympathetic activation, but for them, it was simply the way of life, a wisdom carried in their blood. When you live each day in rhythm with the land, sleep becomes as natural as breathing. Their bodies knew when the sun set. Their spirits knew when the day was done. No clocks, no alarms, only nature's whisper guiding them toward rest. Each tribe had their own customs for warmth and healing during the night. Among the Lakota, a heated stone was wrapped in hides and placed near the feet, releasing gentle heat for hours. In the northern forests, the Ojibwe burned cedar and sweet grass, filling their lodges with a soft, cleansing aroma. The Iroquois longhouses, vast and strong, were lined with bark panels that kept the cold winds away. Families slept side by side, Parents, children, elders, sharing warmth through closeness. This connection was sacred. The heat of the body was the heat of life itself. To sleep beside one another was not just comfort, it was community. Sometimes before sleep, stories were told. The storyteller, often an elder, would sit by the fire, eyes gleaming with light, and speak slowly, letting every word drift like smoke. Stories of the coyote who outwitted the frost, of the bear who guarded the stars, of the raven who taught the people how to keep fire alive. Children would listen, eyes heavy, while the snow whispered outside. Even the adults found peace in these tales, for in them were not only lessons, but reminders that every hardship, even the winter, carried beauty and purpose. The tribe saw dreams as messages. To dream was to receive wisdom. To listen to one's dream was to live in balance. In the morning, they would gather quietly, sharing their dreams with one another. An elder might interpret the meaning. A hawk could mean freedom. A frozen river might mean patience. Dreams were not just imagination. They were conversation with the unseen world. And so, each night, as sleep took them, they surrendered not only their bodies, but their spirits to this gentle world between worlds. Even in the harshest winters, when the snow came up to the knees and the wind howled like spirits in the dark, they remained calm. They knew the land, they trusted it. The same land that froze them was the one that fed them, sheltered them, and guided their ancestors. They had learned that peace with the world begins with peace inside the self. And so, when they lay down to rest, it was with open hearts, unafraid, unhurried, untroubled. Imagine it now. You are lying beneath the fur of a great buffalo, its scent earthy and warm. Your breath forms small clouds in the cool air, but you don't feel cold. The fire's glow washes the inside of the teepee in gold and amber light. Outside, snow drifts silently across the open plain. You close your eyes. You hear the gentle breathing of others around you. Steady, deep, peaceful. You feel the heartbeat of the earth below, the pulse of life that never stops. And then, slowly, you begin to drift. The stars above twinkle through a small opening at the top of the teepee. They shimmer like eyes watching kindly over the world. In the distance, the cry of an owl, soft, mournful, ancient, echoes across the snow. The air grows still. Time slows. And as your breathing evens out, you cross that invisible line between waking and dreaming. You are warm, you are weightless, you are safe. Somewhere in that quiet space you hear a voice, not in words but in feeling. It tells you to rest. It tells you the cold cannot harm you. It tells you that you are part of the great circle, fire, snow, sky and soul, all bound together by breath. And so you sleep. Not the shallow sleep of the restless, but the deep, timeless sleep of those who belong to the land. This was the secret that kept them alive. Not just fur or fire, but faith. Faith in the balance of all things. The warmth they carried was not only in their shelters, but in their hearts. And that warmth, the warmth of connection, gratitude, and trust, was stronger than any winter that ever came. Music softens. Faint crackle of fire continues for ambience. The fire burned low, its embers glowing like tiny stars resting upon the earth. Outside, The wind moved slowly across the snow-covered plain, brushing against the teepee walls like a whisper from the ancient world. The night was deep, still, and endless. Above them, the sky stretched wide and silent, a vast blanket of black velvet scattered with starlight. Each star shimmered softly, as though it remembered every story ever told by their ancestors. To the native tribes, the sky was not just a ceiling above the world. It was a living map, a guide, a sacred memory that watched over them through every cold and lonely night. The cold did not sleep. It crept along the frozen river, curled through the bare branches of trees, and settled across the land like a sheet of glass. But inside the shelter of the teepee, warmth still lingered, not only from the fire, but from the quiet closeness of family, from the comfort of shared breath and shared hope. Blankets made of buffalo hide rested over tired shoulders. The soft fur held the heat of the day's fire, and the weight of it was calming, like the gentle hand of the earth itself. Children lay, nestled side by side, their eyes heavy, their hearts steady, listening to the fading crackle of the flames. Outside, snow continued to fall, slowly, peacefully. Each flake drifted gently through the night, catching the starlight as it descended. To them, snow was not an enemy. It was a quiet gift from the sky, a blanket for the earth, a reminder that even in silence, the world was being renewed. In the stillness, one could hear everything: the soft pop of burning wood, the distant call of an owl perched upon a lonely pine, the whisper of wind shaping the snow into small white dunes. And above it all, the stars continued to shine. To many tribes, the stars were the campfires of those who came before. They believed that the spirits of their ancestors set their fires in the sky, guiding, protecting, and reminding the living that no one truly sleeps alone under the heavens. Some stars stood bright and steady, guardians of the north, watchers of travelers and hunters. Others formed patterns like rivers and birds and great buffalo herds, moving slowly across the sky as the months passed. Elders would say that when a child is born, a new star is lit. And when someone returns to the Great Spirit, their star moves, shifting gently, finding its place among those who watch over the world. Tonight was one of those nights when the stars seemed close enough to touch, clear, sharp, shining through the cold. As the fire settled into glowing embers, the people closed their eyes, not to escape the world, but to walk more deeply into it. They believed that dreams were not just thoughts, but journeys. When the body slept, the spirit walked quietly, softly, through forests of memory and rivers of time, guided by the stars above. Dreams were messages, sometimes gentle, like the voice of a stream at dawn, sometimes fierce, like a winter storm across the mountains. But they were always meaningful, and so, before sleep, they did not rush. They breathed slowly, listened to the world around them, and opened their hearts to whatever the night might whisper. The snow outside had stopped falling, but its silence remained, blanketing the land in stillness. The world felt as though it was holding its breath. Even the trees, tall and bare, stood silent, their branches outlined in silver by the soft glow of the moon. Above, clouds drifted slowly past the stars, like ancient spirits crossing the sky. The constellations remained, patient, unmoving, watching over the quiet camp below. The people rested, But the night was awake. Those who could not sleep would sometimes lift the entrance flap of the teepee and step outside for a moment. Their footprints pressed softly into the snow, and their breath rose like smoke into the sharp winter air. The cold touched their faces, but they did not fear it. They had learned that winter was not an enemy, only a teacher. They would look up at the sky. The stars shimmered like frost on black stone. The moon cast a pale light across the plains, turning every snowdrift into a quiet wave frozen in time. It was in moments like this that they felt closest to the Great Spirit, not during loud celebrations or warm summer hunts, but in the stillness of night, when all distractions had fallen away. They believed that the sky was a great mirror, reflecting not only the past, but the thoughts and hearts of those who gazed upon it. Some nights, a shooting star would streak across the darkness, leaving a silver trail that vanished just as quickly as it came, and in that moment, anyone who saw it would silently bow their head, not to make a wish, but to listen. For falling stars were messages, gentle reminders that even the brightest things must move, must change, must continue their journey. As the people settled once more into their blankets, the warmth of the fire's last embers filled the teepee like a soft memory of the sun. The flames no longer leapt, but glowed quietly, red, orange, fading slowly into ash. This was the perfect time to dream. They believed that when the world outside was silent, the world within became clear. In sleep, they walked through forests untouched by frost. They followed rivers that whispered ancient songs. They stood upon mountains warmed by morning light. Some dreamed of great herds of buffalo moving across green plains, their hooves thunderous against the earth. Some dreamed of wolves running through snow, breath misting in the air, eyes sharp and knowing. Others saw eagles soaring far above the clouds, touching the edge of the Great Spirit's realm. But whether the dream was gentle or strong, each one carried meaning. In the morning, the elders would listen, not to judge or answer, but to understand. A dream of water could mean healing. A dream of fire could mean change. A dream of snow might mean the world was asking for patience. They did not rush to explain. They sat quietly, letting the dream settle like snow upon the ground, knowing that its meaning would reveal itself in time. Now, as the night deepened, a soft breeze moved through the trees. The clouds parted completely, revealing the full stretch of the sky, a river of stars flowing from one horizon to the other. It was vast, ancient, endless, and under that eternal sky, the people slept peacefully. The night stretched on, quiet and vast, as if the earth itself had paused to breathe. Inside the teepee, the embers glowed faintly, casting long shadows that danced slowly on the walls, like memories moving in a dream. Outside, the snow remained a soft blanket, untouched and eternal. Each flake seemed to hold a story of clouds drifting, of wind wandering, of the sky reaching down to touch the land. Some sleepers shifted in their dreams, their faces serene. One dreamer walked through a forest where the trees were taller than mountains, their branches cradling the stars. With each step, the snow beneath her feet sparkled like crushed diamonds, and the air hummed with the songs of unseen creatures. Another dreamed of a river that ran upside down through the sky, reflecting the constellations above. Fish swam through the stars, moving with grace and patience, and she reached out her hand, feeling the cool shimmer of water against her fingertips, understanding that some journeys were not meant to be rushed. The sky above deepened in colour. A black velvet stretched over the land, punctuated by countless stars. Some twinkled, some shone steadily, and some moved slowly, leaving silver trails that faded into the night. It felt as though the Great Spirit itself was painting across the heavens, one careful stroke at a time. For those awake, this was the perfect time for thought. They would step outside, footprints pressed into the snow, and breathe the cold air that burned their cheeks and cleared their minds. Some closed their eyes, listening to the silence, a silence that carried wisdom, patience, and the subtle rhythms of the world. And for those still in slumber, dreams deepened. A dreamer might find themselves atop a ridge, gazing over plains filled with herds of buffalo, the ground vibrating with the sound of their hooves. Another might soar with eagles, wings outstretched, touching the edge of clouds and feeling the freedom of the wind. Every dream was a story, every story a message, each one a thread in the endless tapestry of life. As the night moved toward its quiet middle, the first hints of change brushed the horizon. A faint glow, subtle and gentle, began to push against the darkness. It was not yet dawn, only a promise, a whisper, a soft note in the symphony of the hours. Even the fire in the teepee seemed to sense it. The embers brightened slightly, offering one last warmth before the sun would arrive. And the people slept on, cradled by the night, enveloped in peace, waiting for the sky itself to slowly awaken them. A wolf, far from the camp, padded silently across the plains, its paws pressed into the snow like delicate whispers, and it paused to lift its nose, inhaling the scent of the night. Even the animals seemed to know that this hour belonged to reflection, not action, to stillness, not motion. The elders slept with eyes closed, yet in their dreams they wandered freely through time. They saw past winters, past hunts, past councils held under the same moonlight. They saw the children of tomorrow, carrying the stories of the ancestors like seeds in their hearts. And as they dreamed, their breaths were slow, steady, a rhythm that anchored the night itself. Sometimes a lone snowflake drifted inside the teepee, carried by the soft gust of wind through the flap. It landed gently upon a blanket or a folded arm, melting quietly, a reminder that even the smallest things had significance. The night lingered, holding the world in a delicate hush. Every sound was soft, measured, as if the land itself had slowed its heartbeat. The horizon began its subtle transformation, a quiet promise of light, faint and almost imperceptible, brushing the edge of the snow-covered plains. The glow was gentle, a whisper of warmth against the cold, a slow thread weaving through the darkness. Inside the teepee, the last embers of the fire shimmered softly, tiny sparks dancing upward before fading, leaving behind a calm, steady glow. Shadows stretched long across the interior, moving imperceptibly as the flames pulsed ever so slightly. The blankets, heavy with furs and warmth, lay folded and creased, holding the faint imprint of bodies that had shifted in sleep. Even the tiniest movements, a hand adjusting, a blanket shifting, became deliberate, measured, and peaceful. Outside, the snow held the memory of the wind's earlier dance. Each flake glittered faintly in the pre-dawn glow, reflecting the soft light like tiny lanterns scattered across a frozen sea. The wind moved cautiously now, brushing branches and stirring distant drifts, a slow, whispered conversation with the world. The sleepers' breaths rose in gentle clouds, curling upward, mingling with the crisp air. Every exhale was long, soft, and visible, disappearing slowly into the hush of night. Even the cold seemed suspended, holding its bite patiently, letting warmth and chill coexist in perfect balance. Dreams meandered, carrying travelers through unseen worlds. One dreamer wandered through a forest where each tree stretched endlessly, their branches brushing the stars. The snow beneath their feet crunched softly, each step deliberate, echoing faintly in the dreamscape. The air smelled of pine and frost, crisp and subtle, each inhalation slow, mindful and calming. Another dreamer followed a river flowing under a frozen sky. The water reflected not only the stars, but also the soft blush of the coming dawn, shimmering in colors that seemed almost too delicate to see. They dipped their hands into the icy current, feeling the pulse of the world move slowly beneath their fingers. Each ripple traveled with patience, as if time itself had learned to breathe along with them. Animals of the night moved in slow, careful rhythms. A fox stretched and shifted in a hollow, tucking its paws beneath its body, ears twitching at the faintest whisper of wind. A lone wolf crossed a distant ridge, each paw pressing softly into the snow, leaving delicate tracks that traced a quiet story across the plains. Even the birds in the trees moved cautiously, ruffling feathers, practicing the notes they would sing when the sun finally rose. The sky above began a gentle transformation. Blackness softened to a deep indigo, then to muted violet, and gradually to streaks of soft pink along the horizon. Clouds drifted lazily, catching the first hints of light, painting subtle patterns that seemed to stretch forever. Stars, though fewer now, twinkled in defiance, holding their vigil until the sun's warmth fully claimed the sky. Shooting stars sometimes arced across the heavens, slow, deliberate, silver ribbons fading softly into the dark. Dreamers paused in sleep to witness them, sensing the quiet message that everything moves, shifts, and continues, even in the stillness. Inside the teepee, warmth remained a gentle presence. Blankets pressed softly against the sleepers, embers radiated a final heat, and the air smelled faintly of wood smoke, furs, and the earth beyond the snow. Even the subtle shifts of weight, every tiny motion, every breath became part of the rhythm of this quiet hour. The horizon's glow deepened, inch by inch, moment by moment. Soft golds began to mix with violet and pink, streaking across clouds in delicate patterns, like a slow painting stretching across the sky. The wind carried a faint scent of thawing earth, of distant rivers awakening beneath ice, of life waiting patiently for the sun. Dreams continued to unfold with gentle persistence. A dreamer walked with a herd of buffalo across endless plains, feeling the vibration of their hooves reverberate through the snow, soft and steady. Another soared with eagles above distant mountains, wings stretched wide, feeling the slow lift of wind, the patient motion of clouds, the quiet majesty of sky and earth meeting. Even the tiniest sounds were magnified in this hour. The rustle of snow, the crack of a distant branch, the faint shuffle of animals, each described in micro detail, repeated slowly, allowing time to expand naturally. The warmth of blankets, the weight of furs, the soft glow of the fire, all narrated in calm, lingering sentences, each breath and movement prolonged, deliberate. The first true hints of sunrise appeared as faint blushes across the horizon, soft and tentative. It was still largely night, yet the promise of day was undeniable, stretching slowly, imperceptibly across the plains and forests. The snow reflected these colours faintly, tiny prisms catching the early light and scattering it gently. All of this, the wind, the snow, the animals, the dreams, the embers, the sky, moved in a deliberate, unhurried pace. It was a world stretched to infinite calm, a meditation in motion, a bridge between sleep and waking, night and day, and the people slept on, cradled by blankets, by warmth, by dreams, and by the patient, infinite rhythm of the land itself. The horizon shifted slowly, imperceptibly at first, from violet and pink to soft, muted gold. Each moment seemed to stretch, like time itself had slowed to match the rhythm of the waking world. The snow reflected these gentle changes, each flake catching the light in a subtle shimmer, glittering like countless tiny lanterns scattered across the frozen plains. Inside the teepee, sleepers stirred gently. Blankets shifted, heavy with warmth, and the faint smell of wood smoke lingered in the cool morning air. Even the embers of the fire, now barely glowing, seemed to pulse in sync with the first light creeping across the landscape. Outside, the world was awakening slowly. A fox stepped softly from its hollow, careful with each paw, moving like a shadow across the snow. A distant wolf raised its head, sniffing the faint scent of the sun's approach, its breath misting in the cold air. Birds ruffled feathers in the trees, testing the wind, practicing the notes they would soon sing fully. The sky continued its slow transformation. Violet softened into deeper blue, streaked with long bands of rose and pale gold. Clouds drifted lazily, catching the first warmth of the sun, their edges tinged with pink and silver. Even the stars lingered faintly, twinkling stubbornly before surrendering completely to daylight. Dreams lingered in the camp. One dreamer walked beside a river, now catching the golden light of sunrise, its surface reflecting clouds and stars together, a bridge between night and day. Another soared above mountain peaks, wings stretched wide, feeling the wind lift and carry them slowly, weightless and unhurried. The cold morning air brushed against faces, sharp yet soft. Each inhalation was deliberate, filling the lungs with crispness, clarity, and quiet alertness. Snow crunched under cautious footsteps, echoing softly across distant plains, marking gentle passages in a world still suspended between night and day. Inside the teepee, preparations for the day began slowly. Blankets were shifted and folded, furs brushed lightly, embers stirred slightly to warm hands. The smell of wood smoke and earth mingled with the faint scent of melting frost outside, creating a calm, grounding atmosphere. Animals continued their measured awakening. A horse lifted its head, nostrils flaring, taking in the first light. Wolves padded softly through the snow, observing, listening, moving with patience. Every movement was deliberate, slow, attentive, part of the rhythm of the land. The wind whispered through the treetops and across the plains, carrying faint sounds of awakening streams, distant rivers beginning to stir beneath ice, and the soft rustle of snow falling from branches. Even the tiniest details, a flake landing on fur, a twig bending under frost, a feather brushing snow, were described in careful, slow motion. The sun's first rays finally touched the horizon in full, spilling golden light across the land. Snow sparkled like crystals, each flake catching the light and scattering it gently. Shadows retreated slowly, lengthening then shrinking in soft, deliberate motion, as if time itself were breathing. People in the camp stirred further, hands brushed against furs and blankets, shifting weight, stretching slowly. Breath was calm, deliberate, syncing with the quiet rhythm of the morning. Eyes opened to the gentle glow of the sky, noticing the subtle motion of snow, trees, animals, and clouds. Dreams gradually faded as reality touched the sleepers. Some dreams lingered softly, whispering lessons of patience, gratitude, and awareness of the land. Others dissolved like morning mist, leaving only a calm sense of presence, connection, and serenity. The day had arrived, yet it moved slowly, carefully. Every sound, sight, touch, and breath unfolded with deliberate slowness. Even the rising sun, majestic and golden, seemed aware of the need for quiet, extended presence. The world, fully awake now, remained gentle. Snow, wind, animals, and people moved together in perfect, slow harmony. The camp was alive with subtle motion, yet it held the stillness and calm of night, blending past and present into one seamless, meditative moment. Low flute hum fades into the gentle sound of wind and snow. Distant animal calls continue softly. And so, the people welcome the day, each movement slow, mindful, deliberate, carrying the peace of night into the light of morning. As the first light of morning stretched slowly across the plains, the night's stories lingered in the air. Inside the teepee, the people shifted quietly, wrapping themselves more tightly in blankets and furs. The cold was present, yet softened by the warmth of the fire's fading glow and the gentle embrace of each other. This was the hour for legends. Tales passed from one generation to the next, whispered softly, like the wind brushing through the trees. The elders spoke slowly, deliberately, their voices carrying the weight of countless winters. Every word stretched, each syllable deliberate, rolling across the silence like a gentle river over stones. One legend told of the great wolf of the northern plains. Long ago, it was said, the wolf guided lost travelers through blizzards, its eyes glowing like lanterns in the snow. The story unfolded slowly, the wolf appearing through drifting snow, its breath rising like smoke, its paws pressing softly into frozen ground. Every flap of its wings stretched across minutes, each shadow cast by its flight lingering on the snow-covered plains. The elders paused often, letting the story settle like snow, giving the listeners time to feel the journey in their bones. Low whistle of wind, faint call of a distant bird, soft shifting of blankets. A third legend spoke of the star that fell to earth. Once, a bright star left the sky to teach people the meaning of patience and courage. It drifted slowly, descending over frozen forests and silent rivers, reflecting in every icy surface it passed. Those who saw it were not to make wishes, but to listen, to learn that even the brightest, most fleeting things had their purpose. In the telling, every movement of the star was drawn out, the shimmer across the snow, the gentle streak through the sky, the slow fading into the world below. Listeners imagined the light lingering in each snowdrift, in each frozen branch, in the eyes of animals watching from afar. Stories moved from one legend to the next, each told with a soft cadence that stretched moments into meditative hours. The elders' hands gestured slowly, tracing paths in the air or pointing to stars barely fading in the dawn sky. The fire's glow flickered gently, casting shadows that seemed to move in time with the stories themselves. The story unfolded slowly. The wolf appearing through drifting snow, its breath rising like smoke, its paws pressing softly into frozen ground. It led hunters and children, the lost and weary, showing them the hidden paths, the frozen rivers safe to cross, and the forests that sheltered warmth. Listeners imagined every detail, the frost that clung to its fur, the slow swish of its tail, the careful lift of each paw. Even the snowflakes landing on its back seemed deliberate, each one catching the dim starlight as it drifted downward. Another tale spoke of the eagle who touched the sky. Long ago, the eagle soared so high that it brushed the edge of the Great Spirit's domain. Its wings moved slowly, deliberately, carrying it over rivers, forests, and mountains. The dreamers in the audience imagined themselves lifted by the wind, feeling the patient pull of currents, the soft shimmer of clouds passing beneath their claws. Every flap of its wings stretched across minutes, each shadow cast by its flight lingering on the snow-covered plains. The elders paused often, letting the story settle like snow, giving the listeners time to feel the journey in their bones. A third legend spoke of the star that fell to earth. Once, a bright star left the sky to teach people the meaning of patience and courage. It drifted slowly, descending over frozen forests and silent rivers, reflecting in every icy surface it passed. Those who saw it were not to make wishes, but to listen, to learn that even the brightest, most fleeting things had their purpose. In the telling, every movement of the star was drawn out, the shimmer across the snow, the gentle streak through the sky, the slow fading into the world below. Listeners imagined the light lingering in each snowdrift, in each frozen branch, in the eyes of animals watching from afar. Stories moved from one legend to the next, each told with a soft cadence that stretched moments into meditative hours. The elders' hands gestured slowly, tracing paths in the air or pointing to stars barely fading in the dawn sky. The fire's glow flickered gently, casting shadows that seemed to move in time with the stories themselves. Animals were part of the tales as well. A fox might appear in a story, curling beneath a snow-laden tree, ears alert to whispered winds. A horse could be seen running across a frozen plain, its breath rising in soft clouds, hooves pressing deliberate tracks into snow. Even distant wolves, heard only by their faint howls, were remembered as guides, protectors, companions. Each story carried lessons: patience, courage, mindfulness, unity, gratitude. The listeners, young and old, absorbed them slowly, letting the words sink into their bones, into their dreams, into the quiet rhythm of the land. The snow outside remained soft, untouched, holding the memory of every story told. Each flake seemed to shimmer with the images conjured by words: wolves leading, eagles soaring, stars falling, foxes watching. The wind whispered through the trees as if to echo the stories, bending branches softly, shaking loose tiny flakes of snow that fell like punctuation on each legend. Dreamers drifted further into imagination. Some followed the wolf across endless plains, noticing every crunch of snow beneath its paws. Some soared with the eagle, feeling the slow, patient lift of the wind beneath their wings. Some reached for the fallen star, letting its silver light trail through their fingers, dissolving slowly into understanding. Even the simplest moments were stretched. The quiet shift of a blanket, a breath curling in the cold morning air, the faint scent of embers and wood smoke lingering. Every detail, repeated with gentle variation, allowed the mind to slow, relax, and sink further into the calm of the cold, still morning. As the legends concluded, the elders let silence settle like soft snow over the listeners. They did not rush to explain meaning, for the wisdom was not in words alone. It was in feeling, in reflection, in the patient attention to every moment. The wind continued its gentle song, brushing across snowdrifts, carrying faint scents of earth and pine. The animals remained quietly nearby, still part of the world's slow rhythm. And the people, cradled by blankets, embers, and dreams, carried the lessons of the legends into their own hearts, letting the stories extend into the quiet hours of sleep and reflection. The cold nights, the ancient legends, the soft glow of the fire, and the quiet world outside all merged into a single unbroken rhythm. A rhythm slow, deliberate, eternal, stretching across hours, teaching patience, gratitude, and harmony with the land. The first light of morning crept across the plains in a patient, deliberate glow. Snow stretched endlessly, each flake catching and reflecting the faint pink and gold of the horizon. The world was quiet, but alive. Every movement, no matter how small, was measured, slow, and purposeful. Outside the teepees, a horse stirred. Its ears twitched slowly, alert to the sound of wind brushing against branches. One soft breath, curling into the cold air, rose like smoke and drifted away. Muscles shifted gradually beneath its thick winter coat, each tendon flexing carefully as though reluctant to move but obeying a deliberate rhythm. The hooves pressed softly into the snow, leaving faint imprints, small depressions that seemed to mark time itself. The horse lifted one foreleg slowly, testing the frost beneath, and then set it down again, each movement extended and precise. It sniffed the wind, tasting the cold, inhaling faint scents of distant rivers, thawing streams, and hidden animals moving quietly beneath snowdrifts. A wolf padded along a ridge nearby. Its steps were deliberate, measured, silent, except for the soft compression of snow beneath each paw. It paused, head tilting slightly, nostrils flaring, listening to the wind's whisper. The snow shifted subtly, brushing against its fur, dusting its muzzle, settling along its back. Eyes glimmered faintly in the soft dawn, reflecting the stretching light in slow, patient glimmers. The wolf lowered its head, sniffing the frozen earth. A distant branch creaked. A bird stirred far above. The wolf's ears flicked. It breathed slowly, deliberately, exhaling into the crisp air. Each micro movement was drawn out, intentional, part of the rhythm of the cold, still world. A fox emerged from a hollow. It stretched, arching its back, curling, uncurling. The fur brushed lightly against frost-covered leaves, sending small flakes drifting to the ground. It sniffed the air, hearing, feeling, tasting the stories of the snow, of hidden dens, of distant prey, of quiet humans tucked beneath blankets. Its tail moved slowly, deliberately, brushing the snow, leaving a trail like a painted stroke. The fox paused, ears erect, head tilted, sensing every subtle vibration in the frozen forest. Its amber eyes caught faint sunlight, reflecting soft gold streaks across white drifts. It padded forward, one paw at a time, slow, deliberate. careful not to disturb the quiet. Birds stirred in the trees. One ruffled feathers, testing the wind. A second hopped lightly, landing softly on a snow-laden branch. Tiny flakes fell as they moved, drifting slowly, turning the forest floor into a soft, sparkling mosaic. A crow lifted into the sky, wings stretching deliberately, catching a gust of wind that lifted it higher, higher, slower, as if the ascent were meant to last for eternity. Even the smallest details, the flick of a wing, the slight tilt of a head, the settling of snow on a branch, were extended, measured, observed slowly. Dreamers in the camp followed these animals. They moved with the wolf, feeling snow compress beneath their feet, noticing every subtle crunch, every small shift in frozen earth. They ran with the horse across open plains, hair lifted by the wind, hooves pressing deeply into drifts, muscles flexing, every movement slow and powerful. They crept with the fox through forests, feeling frost brushing their hands, noticing every leaf, twig, and frozen droplet sparkling in the dawn. Even smaller creatures were observed in gentle detail. A hare twitched its nose, sniffing faint traces of wind. Its ears lifted and lowered slowly, feeling vibrations in the snow. It hopped carefully, pressing tiny paws into drifts, moving one step at a time, deliberate, cautious. A squirrel crept along a branch, sniffing, nibbling, brushing snow with tiny paws. Its movements were so slow, so deliberate, they could be followed inch by inch, step by step. The people in the camp moved quietly, as if in response to the rhythm of these companions. Blankets shifted softly as hands adjusted, furs brushed, embers stirred. Each movement echoed the patient, careful motions outside, a breath taken deliberately, a stretch held, a finger tracing patterns in the snow-dusted blankets. Dreams extended these movements further. The wolf led across endless plains, marking paths hidden beneath ice, over frozen rivers, past forests where snow hung heavy on branches. The horse carried dreamers across golden light reflecting on drifts, each hoofbeat a meditation in itself. The fox revealed hidden shelters, small clearings, secret paths, teaching careful observation and awareness. Birds rose slowly into the sky, carrying dreamers above forests and plains, wings stretched, each flap deliberate, each glide extended into moments of quiet reflection. Sounds were amplified in this slow hour, the faint crunch of snow under paw or hoof, the subtle brush of fur against frost, the whisper of wind through trees, the distant drip of melting snow. Each sound lingered, repeated in gentle variation, drawing attention to the calm, measured rhythm of the world. Sunlight continued its deliberate ascent. Golden rays spread slowly across plains and forests, catching the eyes and fur of animals, scattering light across frozen rivers and snowdrifts. Shadows moved lazily, stretching long, then compressing softly, ebbing and flowing in time with wind, snow, and breathing bodies. Even stillness held lessons: patience, awareness, harmony. The quiet companionship between humans and animals was subtle but profound. Shared existence, careful observation, mutual understanding. The snow, wind, animals, and people moved together, slowly, deliberately, in a rhythm that stretched moments into hours. And so the camp remained, humans cradled by blankets, warmth, and dreams, animals moving carefully, purposefully, and patiently through the cold, still morning. Every breath, step, gaze, and touch became part of the extended meditation. The land itself seemed to breathe in this slow rhythm, holding all creatures in gentle, deliberate balance. Even as the sun climbed higher, the lesson remained: to move slowly, to observe carefully, to live with awareness, to honor the silent companionship that stretched across hours, days, and generations. And in this gentle, measured rhythm, the people slept, dreamed, and awoke with their animal companions, cradled in harmony with the winter world. The day had begun, though the light arrived slowly, stretching across the plains in deliberate, quiet arcs of gold and pink. Snow shimmered faintly under the gentle glow, soft and endless, catching every beam of sunlight in delicate, icy sparks. The cold was present, but gentle, a patient teacher rather than a harsh adversary. Even the wind moved with careful grace, brushing snowdrifts and bare trees, whispering secrets across the frozen earth. The people prepared for their winter journey with careful, deliberate motions. Blankets were folded slowly, furs brushed with patience, boots pressed into the snow, testing each step before lifting. Hands lingered over packs and straps, adjusting them with mindful precision. Breath rose visibly, curling in soft spirals into the cold air before dissolving. Every movement, every step, every shift of weight was slow, deliberate, and observed. Time itself seemed to stretch, moments folding into hours, hours into the rhythm of snow, wind, and silence. They began moving across the frozen plains in single file, each footfall soft and measured. Snow compressed beneath feet, releasing faint, subtle cracks hidden beneath frozen layers. The wind brushed against faces, lifting hair and furs with patient gentleness. Every exhalation, every inhale, every small shift of body weight became part of a continuous meditation. Even the cold air, biting at first, became a guide, a reminder of presence, endurance, and awareness. Animals accompanied the travelers, moving with deliberate patience. A wolf padded along a distant ridge, each paw pressing softly into snow, eyes alert, nostrils flaring in slow, deliberate breaths. A horse lifted its head, muscles flexing gradually beneath thick fur, hooves pressing into drifts with careful cadence. Foxes moved along forest edges, darting from tree to tree, showing hidden clearings and subtle paths. Even birds rose slowly into the sky, wings extended in arcs that stretched for minutes, gliding in perfect harmony with wind and sun. The travelers paused at intervals, allowing the rhythm of the land to sink deeply into awareness. They watched shadows stretch and soften across snowdrifts. They noted every glimmer of frost on branches, every ripple of ice in distant streams. Breath curled in the cold air, soft and slow, fading gradually, and footsteps left faint temporary marks in the snow, each telling a story of presence and movement. Dream sequences intertwined with reality. Travelers imagined crossing frozen rivers with wolves, climbing icy ridges with eagles, or gliding alongside foxes through forested paths. Each movement was deliberate, each detail prolonged. A paw pressing into snow, a hoof sinking, a wing cutting through the cold air. Even snowflakes were observed falling in slow motion, landing softly, brushing against skin, fur, and clothing. Practical survival habits were woven into the journey. Some paused to brush snow from furs, ensuring warmth remained trapped beneath. Others adjusted footwear, checking for ice, softness, or potential injury. Fires were kindled slowly at safe resting points, embers glowing softly, and blankets were wrapped carefully to preserve heat for moments of pause or meditation. Every motion, no matter how small, was deliberate, carefully extended, repeated for awareness and survival. Animals taught lessons along the way. The wolf demonstrated patience, waiting for the herd to pass safely, listening to every subtle sound of snow, wind, and distant movement. The horse taught endurance, carrying supplies across frozen plains, muscles moving slowly, deliberately, in steady rhythm. The fox taught caution and awareness, showing hidden paths and shelters, moving with soft precision, almost imperceptible, yet full of guidance. Birds taught perspective, rising high into the sky, gliding above forests and plains, observing the patterns of the world, then returning to land slowly, deliberately. The travelers' senses were fully engaged. Every crunch of snow underfoot, every whisper of wind through trees, every glimmer of frost in sunlight was observed and absorbed. Breath, heartbeat, muscle tension, clothing textures, all were extended, deliberate, part of the continuous meditation. Even distant mountains, streams, and ridges were noticed in slow detail, their contours elongated by light, shadow, and patient attention. The horizon shifted slowly. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky, edges catching gold and pink light. Shadows stretched, shortened, and shifted again, moving in time with sun, snow, and wind. The world seemed to breathe in tandem with the travelers, a slow rhythm of awareness, endurance, and patience. Dreamers imagined further journeys. They followed herds of buffalo across frozen plains, feeling the rhythm of thunderous hooves beneath snow. They climbed mountains dusted with frost, tracing ridges and valleys with deliberate awareness, noticing every frozen stone, every icy ledge. They explored forests where snow hung heavily from branches, feeling each flake brush hands and fur, sensing hidden streams and quiet dens. Even micro-actions were stretched into meditation. Hands adjusted blankets, furs and straps. Eyes lingered on distant snow patterns, subtle shadows, glinting ice. Breath rose and fell, visible in cold air, spiraling and fading. Footsteps pressed softly into drifts, leaving marks that told stories in snow. The winter journey continued for hours, unbroken. Every step, every movement, every breath was deliberate, observed, absorbed. Snow, wind, animals, and humans moved together in slow harmony, each action a meditation, each observation a reflection. Time became measured not in minutes or hours, but in awareness, presence, and connection. As the day slowly ascended, sunlight shifted across the plains. Every glimmer of frost, every snowdrift, every frozen branch was observed with care. Animals moved with steady, deliberate rhythm. Wolves, horses, foxes, and birds maintaining harmony with travelers. The journey was no longer a physical movement alone. It became spiritual, meditative, reflective. Every detail, snow, ice, wind, breath, heartbeat, step, carried meaning, stretched into awareness, teaching patience, endurance, and unity. The cold, once an adversary, became a teacher. The snow, wind, and animals became companions. Dreams and reality merged. Every micro movement, every pause, every glance at horizon or sky, every exhalation became part of a timeless rhythm, slow and unbroken. And so the winter journey continued, step by deliberate step, breath by patient breath, in harmony with the slow, unbroken rhythm of the winter world. The travelers moved in alignment with the land, animals, and sky. Each moment, every crunch of snow, every shifting shadow, every frozen branch, every gentle gust of wind was observed, absorbed, extended, time stretched endlessly, and in this deliberate, slow rhythm, the travelers learned endurance, patience, unity, and the quiet presence of winter, step by step, breath by breath, heart by heart. The travelers moved in alignment with the land, animals, and sky. Each moment, every crunch of snow, every shifting shadow, every frozen branch, every gentle gust of wind was observed, absorbed, extended, time stretched endlessly, and in this deliberate, slow rhythm, the travelers learned endurance, patience, unity, and the quiet presence of winter, step by step, breath by breath, heart by heart. The travelers paused as the plains opened into a gentle valley, a perfect place to rest, to create shelter, to reconnect with the rhythm of the land. Snow blanketed the ground, smooth and soft, hiding the rocks and uneven patches beneath. The cold touched faces and hands, but no longer sharply. It was familiar, predictable, respected. Hands moved slowly and deliberately, checking blankets, furs, and packs. Each strap adjusted, each bundle of firewood lifted, became a measured, mindful motion. Breaths rose visibly in the cold air, curling into delicate spirals before fading into the wind. Every micro-action, every small movement was extended, observed, repeated, part of a deliberate rhythm that carried meaning beyond survival. The first task was shelter. Tipis were unpacked, poles laid carefully across snow, tips aligned and measured, each rope tied with deliberate patience, knots checked and retied slowly, ensuring stability against wind and snow. Blankets and furs were spread across floors, thick layers overlapping, insulating from the frozen ground. Even the placement of each item was thoughtful, preserving warmth, protecting from drafts, and preparing a sacred space for sleep and dreams. While some prepared the shelter, others worked on fire. Wood was chosen carefully, dry, dense branches that would smoulder slowly. Kindling was arranged delicately, small sticks layered to catch flame without rushing. Matches or flint were struck with patience, sparks catching, glowing, igniting the small kindling. The fire grew gradually, embers spreading warmth into the tipi, radiating comfort that extended beyond the physical body. The rhythm of preparation was slow, meditative. Hands brushed snow from furs, adjusted blankets, and rearranged supplies. Eyes scanned the horizon, noting distant trees, hills, shadows in the snow, clouds moving deliberately across the sky. The wind whispered through branches, carrying the scent of pine, frozen earth, and distant streams. Even the smallest sounds, the creak of a pole, the shift of a blanket, the crackle of embers, became part of the extended meditation. Animals watched nearby. A wolf paused on a ridge, ears twitching, observing the careful human movements. A horse shifted slowly, muscles relaxing after the long journey, breath rising in visible clouds. Foxes darted between trees, curious but cautious, demonstrating the subtle balance between presence and patience. Even birds moved deliberately, hopping along branches, ruffling feathers, their tiny calls stretching into quiet echoes across the valley. Every action was a lesson. Laying furs on the ground was not just warmth, it was a connection to the earth, a recognition of resources, a patient ritual. Lighting the fire was not only survival, it was a meditation, a dance with elements, a teaching passed through generations. Building shelter was not just structure, it was care, mindfulness, respect for the land, and preparation for the night's long rest. Dreamers observed every detail. Some imagined teepees rising in slow motion, poles sliding into place, ropes tightening gradually, blankets forming protective layers across snow-dusted floors. Some followed the fire as sparks caught kindling, flames stretching upward, red, orange, golden embers radiating warmth slowly across every surface. Others walked alongside animals, noticing their reactions to human preparation, learning patience, observation, and the quiet balance between all living beings. The cold, once challenging, became an ally. Snow reflected light from the fire, from the sky, from the faint pink glow of clouds. The wind carried sounds gently, emphasizing the rhythm of human and animal movements, the slow unfolding of preparation, and the quiet interaction with the land. Even the tiniest details, a snowflake landing on a blanket, a branch creaking under frost, the curling smoke from a fire, were noticed, repeated, and absorbed into awareness. Time slowed as preparation continued. Hands brushed, furs layered, fires tended. Eyes scanned horizons, noting distant ridges, patterns in snow, shapes of clouds, the slow dance of shadows across plains and forests. Breaths rose and fell in harmony with the rhythm of movement. Every micro-action repeated, prolonged, observed carefully, became part of a slow, mindful meditation on survival, presence, and connection. As the shelter neared completion, warmth spread through the teepee, radiating comfort beyond physical protection. The people gathered inside, arranging sleeping spots with deliberate care. Each fur was smoothed, blankets tucked, positions adjusted slowly, thoughtfully. The fire glowed, embers rising like soft memories of the sun, flickering shadows dancing across interior walls. Outside, snow drifted softly, wind whispered gently, and animals observed from nearby ridges, maintaining the patient rhythm of winter. Before sleep, rituals were observed, stories were shared in hushed tones, chants hummed softly, prayers whispered to the Great Spirit. Every sound, every word, every gesture was slow, deliberate, meaningful. Even silence became part of the meditation, a gentle companion, extending the pause, deepening reflection, and preparing the mind for rest. And so, as night approached, the shelter stood complete. Teepees, insulated against wind and snow, fires glowing softly, blankets layered, furs warmed. The travelers, animals, and land moved together in quiet harmony, preparing for sleep, dreams, and deep reflection. In these moments, every detail, every sound, every micro-action stretched into significance. Every breath, every step, every flicker of firelight became part of the slow rhythm of winter survival. And in this deliberate, patient presence, the people were ready to sleep, not in haste, not in fear, but with trust in the land, in the animals, in the fire, and in the rhythm of their own bodies. The night deepened, stretching across the plains like a quiet river of silver light. Stars shimmered above, countless points of calm reflection, tracing gentle patterns across the sky. The snow outside reflected this light softly, spreading a pale glow across the frozen land. Inside the teepees, warmth radiated gently from glowing embers and layered furs, mingling with the slow rhythm of breath, heartbeat, and firelight. Before sleep, the people paused to honor the rhythm of the day, the presence of the land, and the guidance of the Great Spirit. Every movement was slow, deliberate, and mindful. Hands brushed snow from furs, smoothing blankets with careful attention. Eyes lingered on the fire, observing each flicker, each ember rising like a small sun, glowing red, orange, and gold before fading into ash. Breath rose and fell in slow spirals, curling into the cold interior air before dissipating, a visible rhythm of presence and calm. Storytelling began first. Elders spoke in gentle, measured tones, each word stretched and layered, allowing listeners to absorb meaning fully. They told of ancestors walking across frozen plains, guiding their people with wisdom and patience. They spoke of the Great Spirit who watched over all creatures, both human and animal, whose presence could be felt in the rhythm of snow, wind, and night. Tales of winter hunts, successful or challenging, were recounted slowly. Each detail emphasized the crack of ice underfoot, the shimmer of frost on a branch, the quiet breath of animals in the snow. Listeners, wrapped in blankets and furs, allowed their minds to drift slowly with the stories. Every pause in speech, every gentle inflection extended the narrative. Eyes followed the firelight as it flickered, casting soft shadows across the tippy walls. The sound of snow shifting outside, the distant howl of a wolf, the faint rustle of pine branches in the wind, all became part of the rhythm, guiding the mind into calm awareness. Chants and songs followed storytelling. Low, resonant hums filled the teepee, blending with the soft crackle of embers. The sound rose and fell like gentle waves, deliberate, slow, and meditative. Hands tapped lightly on wooden surfaces, creating subtle rhythms that extended each note, stretching it into long, mindful echoes. Voices rose in harmony, then faded gradually, like snow melting into silence. Even the quietest listener could feel the vibration of song in the chest, in the arms, in every fiber of the body, connecting all in presence, awareness, and reflection. Prayers came next, whispered softly to the Great Spirit. Each prayer was slow, deliberate, almost like a conversation with the wind, snow, and stars themselves. Hands were held together, furs wrapped tightly around bodies, heads lowered in humility and awareness. They gave thanks for warmth, for fire, for food, for safety, for companions, both human and animal. They asked for guidance for the night ahead, for protection during sleep, for the strength to endure cold, for patience and understanding. Each word stretched, repeated softly, allowing time for reflection, for absorption into the mind, heart, and body. The people also listened to the night, allowing silence to speak. Even without words, the cold wind carried messages, the creak of a branch, the shift of snow on the roof of a teepee, the faint sound of animals moving across distant ridges. The mind expanded slowly to notice each sound, each detail, each subtle change in the environment. Even snowflakes falling from a branch above, landing softly on blankets or fur, became a moment of observation, of calm, of deliberate mindfulness. Animals, too, were honored in these rituals. Wolves on distant ridges, horses standing quietly, birds asleep in treetops. Their presence was acknowledged. Some chants imitated animal calls, soft howls, gentle hoof taps, rustling feathers. Listeners imagined traveling with these creatures through forests and plains, moving in slow harmony, observing every movement, every subtle breath, every deliberate action. Dream preparation was also part of the ritual. Before sleep, people visualized journeys through snow-laden forests, across frozen rivers, along distant ridges. Each step, each animal interaction Each shift of wind, each pattern of light and shadow was observed slowly in the mind. Even dreams were extended, layered with deliberate attention, allowing the subconscious to absorb lessons of patience, endurance, and harmony with the land. The fire continued to glow, embers slowly fading, casting a soft red-orange glow that mirrored the stars above. Breath synchronized with the rhythm of the fire and the wind outside. Every micro-action, brushing fur, adjusting blankets, shifting slightly to feel warmth, became a meditative practice. Every small sound, crackle of embers, soft rustle of clothing, distant animal movement became a signal for awareness, patience, and calm reflection. The night stretched endlessly, each moment elongated. Time itself seemed suspended in deliberate, patient rhythm. The Great Spirit was felt in every detail, in the shimmer of frost on branches, in the slow curling of smoke from the fire, in the distant howl of a wolf, in the soft padding of snow against tipi walls. The mind, body, and spirit aligned with this rhythm, preparing for deep, restorative sleep. Even the act of lying down became a ritual. Bodies pressed into layered furs and blankets adjusted slowly to find warmth and comfort. Hands rested gently, fingers brushing soft textures, feeling each layer, each fold, each shift of weight. Eyes closed gradually, observing the fading glow of firelight, then letting darkness extend like a blanket over consciousness. Breaths became slower, deeper, synchronized with wind, fire, snow, and the heartbeat of the land itself. Listeners, wrapped in blankets and furs, allowed their minds to drift slowly with the stories. Every pause in speech, every gentle inflection extended the narrative. Eyes followed the firelight as it flickered, casting soft shadows across the tipi walls. The sound of snow shifting outside, the distant howl of a wolf, the faint rustle of pine branches in the wind, all became part of the rhythm, guiding the mind into calm awareness. Chants and songs followed storytelling. Low, resonant hums filled the tipi, blending with the soft crackle of embers. The sound rose and fell like gentle waves, deliberate, slow, and meditative. Hands tapped lightly on wooden surfaces, creating subtle rhythms that extended each note, stretching it into long, mindful echoes. Voices rose in harmony, then faded gradually, like snow melting into silence. Even the quietest listener could feel the vibration of song in the chest, in the arms, in every fiber of the body, connecting all in presence, awareness, and reflection. Prayers came next, whispered softly to the Great Spirit. Each prayer was slow, deliberate, almost like a conversation with the wind, snow, and stars themselves. Hands were held together, furs wrapped tightly around bodies, heads lowered in humility and awareness. They gave thanks for warmth, for fire, for food, for safety, for companions, both human and animal. They asked for guidance for the night ahead, for protection during sleep, for the strength to endure cold, for patience and understanding. Each word stretched, repeated softly, allowing time for reflection, for absorption into the mind, heart, and body. The night had fully settled across the plains, deep and unmoving, like a great blanket laid gently over the world. The embers inside each tipi glowed with a soft, steady pulse. No flames danced now, only a quiet, warm red breathing beneath ash. The people slept, their breath rising and falling in peaceful rhythm, wrapped in buffalo robes, deer hides, and woven blankets. But outside, the land was still awake. Though human voices had fallen silent, the world beyond the firelight was watched over by others, animals who moved through the snow with quiet purpose, guardians of the sleeping earth. To the people, these were not simply creatures, they were companions, protectors, spirits of the land who walked beside them, even when no words were spoken. Far beyond the circle of teepees, on a distant ridge where moonlight brushed the snow in silver, a wolf stood still. Its breath curled into the air like smoke. Its fur caught the starlight faintly, grey, white, and shadow all at once. It did not howl loudly. Not now. Tonight it only listened. Paws pressed gently into the snow, leaving soft tracks that would soon be covered by drifting frost. Its ears turned toward the camp, not with hunger, not with fear, but with quiet recognition. The wolves did not hunt near the sacred fires. They knew this was a place of warmth, of sleep, of human spirit. In many stories passed from elder to child, the wolf had once walked alongside the first humans, sharing fire, sharing meat, sharing the silence of winter nights. So on nights like this, when stars filled the sky like frost on black stone, the wolves kept watch. One would pause on the ridge, another would move through the trees, its paws making no sound against fresh snow. Their eyes, amber and calm, scanned the wind, the dark horizon, the quiet spaces where danger could come, and if anything approached, a wandering predator, a beast hungry and desperate, the wolves would lift their heads, their voices rising in a long, low song across the frozen night. Not a cry of fear, a warning, a boundary, a reminder that the land, the tribe, and the wolf spirit were bound together. Inside the teepee, some sleepers would hear this distant howl, woven into their dreams like a thread of silver. But they did not wake. They felt safe, for they knew the wolves were watching. Closer to the camp, standing near the edge of the firelight's reach, were the horses. Their bodies steamed gently in the cold, warm breath rising from nostrils and drifting up toward the stars. Their manes moved softly with the wind, frost collecting on hair like tiny beads of light. They stood still but not asleep. Their ears twitched at every sound, the shifting snow, the creak of ice on branches, the distant murmur of wolves, the crackle of embers as they settled. The people trusted them deeply. A horse could sense danger before a human ever opened their eyes. Even in the darkest winter night, when snow piled high and clouds covered the moon, the horses would stand firm, watching, waiting, breathing in slow and steady rhythm. Occasionally, one would step forward, crushing snow softly beneath its hoof, and exhale. A long, calm breath into the cold. The others would follow, quiet as shadows. They did not seek shelter for themselves first. They positioned their bodies to block the wind from reaching the teepees. They stood between the people and the cold. Their warmth, their steady hearts, their silent vigilance, all were part of the night's protection. Above the camp, in the vastness of darkened starlight, an owl glided silently through the trees. Its wings did not make a sound. It moved like a spirit through the frozen air, drifting from branch to branch, settling high above where the snow-laden pines reached toward the sky. To the people, owls were not merely birds. They were dream messengers, keepers of things unseen. Some believed that an owl could fly between the world of sleep and the world of waking, carrying whispers from ancestors, carrying warnings or blessings across the cold night air. It sat upon a branch, feathers puffed against the cold, eyes wide and reflecting moonlight like polished stone. It listened, not just to sound, but to silence, to the stillness between breaths, the spaces between wind and snow. Below, the camp slept. Inside, someone dreamed of a river melting in spring. Another dreamed of buffalo running across golden plains. The owl watched quietly, as if guarding those dreams from being lost in the dark. While the flames of the fire curled into embers and the night deepened into a quiet, icy stillness, the village settled into a silence that was never truly silent at all. Outside the warm shelters of hide and wood, a different kind of vigilance began, one that did not sleep. It was said that in the darkest hours of winter, when snow fell like feathers from a torn sky, the land watched over them, not just through spirits or the moon above, but through living guardians who moved like shadows over the white earth. These were not always warriors, but watchers of the night. The fire had quieted to a gentle glow, its last flames breathing softly against the cold wind. Most of the village slept now, wrapped in layered hides and blankets, stitched with memory and care. Outside, the world was hushed beneath a thick quilt of snow, and the night sky shimmered with stars that watched like ancient eyes. But not everyone slept. Beside the dimming fire sat a lone figure, a watcher. His shoulders were covered in buffalo hide, his breath rising in soft clouds into the frozen air. He said nothing, only listened. The world spoke in quiet ways at night. Through the groan of ice shifting on the river, the crack of a snow-heavy tree limb, or the distant, lonely howl of a wolf echoing off the snowy hills. Every so often he placed another piece of wood onto the fire, carefully, gently, so the children inside the teepees would not stir. The flames responded with a quiet sigh, grateful to keep burning. Some watchers whispered to the fire, words no one else could hear, gratitude for its warmth, and a request that it stay awake a little longer. Near the entrance of the teepee, a pair of dogs lay curled together in the snow, their ears flicked with every sound, their noses drifting in the cold air as if reading invisible messages carried by the wind. Beyond them, a horse shifted its weight, snowflakes gathering on its mane. Though its eyes seemed to rest, it remained alert, guarding its people with silent loyalty. Above, in the dark arms of a leafless tree, an owl sat completely still. Its round eyes glimmered with starlight, watching the camp with an ancient calm. It had seen many winters. It knew the rhythm of the night, the pulse of the land beneath the snow. The people believed the fire was a living spirit. They said it had breath, memory, and an old, watchful heart. As long as it burned, no dark spirit would dare cross the snow. Sparks rose into the air like tiny prayers, carrying the tribe's unspoken hopes toward the heavens. Inside the teepee, a child stirred in sleep and pressed closer to his mother's side. Her arm wrapped around him without waking, as though the warmth of love itself knew no night. Others lay still, trusting that they could rest because someone else was awake, someone who listened when the world whispered. The wind traveled through the pine trees, sounding like an old lullaby sung by the land itself. Snow fell silently, caressing the camp with gentle white feathers from the sky. And in that deep winter stillness, humans, animals, fire, and spirit held the night together. That was how they slept, not because the cold was kind, not because the night was safe, but because they were never truly alone. The cold of night had settled across the land like a quiet, patient spirit, not cruel, but ancient, reminding the people of their small place beneath an endless sky. The snow no longer fell, yet its silence lingered, resting on the world like a second skin. Every sound was softened. Every breath felt sacred. Inside the camp, the teepees stood like still mountains of hide and wood, their pointed tops reaching for the stars. Smoke drifted from their openings, rising slowly before being carried away by the night wind. The stars above watched in perfect silence, their pale blue light spilling gently across the untouched snow. Within one of these teepees, the world felt different, small and warm, as though the earth itself had folded its hands around the people inside. Animal hides layered the ground, soft and thick, keeping the cold from the frozen soil below. The embers of the fire pulsed softly, like a heart still beating beneath blankets of ash. An elder woman sat near the embers, her back straight despite her years. Her hair was braided with strands of grey and white, like the winter clouds outside. She wore a robe made from fox fur, the inside lined with deer hide, each stitch placed by a steady hand long before the snows arrived. In her lap rested a torn blanket of buffalo wool. She threaded her needle through it slowly, repairing it in silence. Across from her, a young mother slept with her infant, nestled close to her chest, her arms wrapped gently around the child, instinctively shielding them from the cold. Every breath she took was soft, steady, her chest rising and falling like small waves on a frozen lake. The baby's tiny fingers rested against her skin, relaxed in dream. Near the back of the teepee, two young brothers lay side by side under a single robe, their heads resting on folded fur. They whispered to each other before sleep, not out of fear, but comfort. Their voices were low, like the rustle of wind through tall grass, speaking of snowflakes that looked like stars and dreams where buffalo ran across green plains. As they drifted into silence, the only sound was the faint crackle of the embers and the occasional sigh of the tippy walls as the wind pressed softly against them. The fire was low, yet its warmth lingered, trapped within the hide-covered shelter, radiating gently through the night. Outside, the watcher tended the central campfire, the one that never went out, not even on the coldest of nights. He moved slowly, his boots pressing deep into the snow, leaving prints that glittered in the moonlight. His cloak, made from buffalo hide, brushed against the snowy ground as he knelt by the fire. He added a single log, listening to the soft groan of the flames as they accepted the offering. Above him, clouds parted like curtains being gently pulled aside. The sky opened, revealing thousands of stars, not bright and burning, but calm and unblinking, like old eyes that had seen centuries pass. The Milky Way stretched from one horizon to the other, a pale river of light flowing across the heavens. The watcher stood in the snow and breathed deeply. The air was cold enough to sting his lungs, but he welcomed it. He believed, as all his people did, that each breath carried the spirit of the land into their bodies. Cold or warm, gentle or fierce, it was all sacred. In the distance, the wolves began to sing. Their howls rolled across the frozen hills, long, slow, echoing like prayers spoken in another language. They were not cries of hunger or threat, but songs of belonging. The dogs near the teepees raised their heads, ears twitching, but did not bark. They knew this song. It was older than any camp, older than any tribe. Back inside the teepee, the elder woman finished her stitching. She held the blanket in her hands, running her fingers gently along the mended seam. It was smooth now, whole again, ready to warm someone through the cold nights still to come. She placed it beside the sleeping children and lowered herself onto her own bed of hides. The firelight brushed across her face like a fading sunset. She lay down slowly, the furs soft beneath her back, and pulled a blanket up to her chin. For a moment she kept her eyes open, watching the way the firelight flickered against the teepee walls. Shadows of horse heads, owl wings, and moving clouds danced across the hide, memories of animals and spirits that guarded the night. The wind moved once more through the trees outside, whispering low lullabies in the language of leaves and snow. It slipped against the teepee walls like a gentle hand, not trying to enter, only reminding them it was there. And finally, she closed her eyes. The embers glowed faintly, red to orange, orange to grey, as though imitating the journey of the sun. Wolves sang, horses breathed softly in their sleep. The stars watched, ancient and tireless, and the people, wrapped in hide, tradition, and quiet faith, rested under the great blanket of winter. The wind quieted, as though it too had laid down to rest. Now, a softer silence embraced the camp, a silence not of emptiness, but of peace. It was the kind of stillness that settles only after the fire has grown low, after the stories have ended, and after tired eyes have drifted into the world of sleep. Inside the teepee, the embers glowed like small moons buried in the ashes. Their warmth was faint but steady, a final gift from the day's fire. Wisps of smoke curled toward the top opening of the teepee, disappearing into the night sky one breath at a time. The people slept deeply. They slept not because the cold had left them alone, but because they had learned to live beside it, to make peace with it, to understand it, to let it become part of their rhythm. Their dreams were not foolish things, not wild fantasies. They were journeys, quiet, sacred travels across lands unseen by waking eyes. The dreams begin. One of the young men, wrapped in deer hide and strength earned from many winters, dreamed he stood at the edge of a frozen river. The ice beneath his feet was clear as glass, and beneath it, fish swam like silver whispers. Across the river stood his ancestors, not ghostly or distant, but calm, waiting. They did not speak. They only nodded, and the dreamer felt no fear. Another sleeper, a young girl resting beside her grandmother, dreamed she was running through a field of snow. But the snow was not cold beneath her feet. It shimmered like moonlight, soft and familiar. Beside her ran a white wolf, its coat glistening like frost. She did not ask where they were going. She only followed because something inside her knew it was right. The old woman, the one who had sewn the blanket, dreamed she was sitting beside a fire much older than any in this winter. The flames were blue and white, dancing like northern lights. Across from her, a figure sat, whose face she could not see, but whose presence felt like home. They did not speak in words. They spoke in warmth, in memory, in understanding. Outside the teepee, the night stretched far beyond the camp, into forests where trees stood like silent witnesses, their branches carrying snow like crowns of ice. The moonlight spilled through them, casting shadows that moved with the wind. Owls drifted silently between branches, their wings slicing through the air without sound. Their eyes, wide, golden, unblinking, watched the world below. They saw everything: the breath of sleeping horses, the faint glow of embers through tippy walls, the single curl of smoke rising into the sky. The horses stood close together, steam rising from their nostrils in slow clouds. Some had fallen asleep standing, others rested their heads on another's mane. Their bodies shielded each other from the wind, just as the people did within the teepee. And the dogs, guardians of the night, lay curled beside each teepee door. Their ears twitched with every sound: the crack of a distant tree splitting from frost, the shift of snow sliding from a rooftop, the far call of wolves. Yet they did not rise. They simply listened, understood, and rested once more. The fire's quiet roll. Though the flames inside the teepee had dimmed, the people believed that fire never truly slept. Even a single ember, glowing quietly beneath the ash, still held spirit. They believed fire saw more than men did, that it carried the dreams of the people up with its smoke, delivering them to the stars. Sometimes, in sleep, the embers would crack softly. A tiny spark would rise, swirling upward, and though no one was awake to see it, it would drift toward the opening of the teepee, where it would slip into the night like a tiny star returning home, the spirit of rest. Among the people, sleep was not simply closing one's eyes. It was a journey, a time when the Great Spirit opened quiet pathways through the heart. They believed that when the world outside became silent, the world inside became clear. That was why winter nights were cherished, not feared. Because the cold pushed them closer together, the darkness drew them nearer to the fire, and the silence made space for dreams. In that silence, a kind of ancient peace could be felt, between the heartbeat and the breath, between the rise and fall of snowflakes, between one ember fading and another glowing to life. And so the camp slept, not quickly, not restlessly, but deeply, with the trust of those who knew they were guarded by fire, by animals, by the stars, and by each other. The winter night, vast and silver, wrapped itself around them like a blanket stitched from moonlight. And until morning came, the dreams continued. The breath before dawn. Outside, the horizon began to change, not with light, not yet, but with a thinning of the darkness. The black sky softened to deep blue. The stars, once sharp as ice, now gently dimmed, as though bowing before the coming sun. But the camp still slept, wrapped in fur and silence, guarded by coals and snowy horses, loved by fire, by wind, by the watching moon. And in this moment, between dark and dawn, between dream and waking, the world felt perfectly still, as though it too remembered how the first hint of morning still hid behind distant mountains. It was not light yet, not truly, but the sky had started to breathe again. Far above, the last fading stars watched over the sleeping camp. Their silver light lay gently upon the snow, like whispers left behind by ancient spirits. The moon, pale and weary, drifted low in the sky, ready to give her place to the sun. She lingered only a moment longer, as though she too did not wish to leave this quiet hour. Inside the teepees, most of the tribe still slept. In one teepee, where the fire had nearly died, a father pulled an extra hide over his youngest child. His movement was slow and silent. practiced through winters of watching, waiting, protecting. The child murmured something soft in its sleep, a fragment of a dream, then fell still again. Next to them, a grandmother lay awake, though her eyes remained closed. She listened to the rhythm of breathing around her, the slow, steady music of life kept warm by fur and memory. Her hands rested gently atop an old buffalo robe, its dark patterns telling stories of hunts, migrations, and prayers that the wind still remembered. She didn't rise yet. She only listened to the quiet, to the snow, to the spirits that moved silently before dawn. Beyond the campfire's reach, the Watcher of the Night had made his final circle around the dwellings. His footprints made small, soft impressions in the snow, each one filled with the shimmer of moonlight. He paused now beside a frozen stream where ice spread out like a sheet of glass. Beneath it, water moved slowly, a hidden current flowing under the thick shield of winter. He knelt and pressed his palm gently to the ice. It was cold, but not lifeless. Beneath his hand, the water hummed with quiet energy, reminding him that even in the deepest cold, life did not stop. It only learned to wait. A breath of wind passed through the trees. The tall pines swayed slightly, not enough to break the silence, only enough to whisper to one another, branches brushing like the soft rustle of ancient robes. The horses and the silent snow. The horses were awake now. Steam drifted from their nostrils in long, curling ribbons. They stood near the edge of camp, each tied loosely so they could bow their heads to the ground. Frost sparkled in their manes like tiny stars tangled in their hair. One of them, a strong, dark mare with a white mark on her forehead, lifted her head and looked toward the horizon. She stamped her hoof once. It was not impatience. It was awareness. The animals sensed morning before humans did. They felt the change of the earth's breath, the shifting of shadows, the promise of light. A wolf, far in the distance, howled once toward the fading moon. It was not a cry of hunger or sorrow, but a greeting to what was coming. The sound carried over the snow like a long silver thread, then disappeared into the trees. Fires rekindled. Back inside the camp, an elder finally rose. His movements were slow, deliberate, out of respect for those still sleeping. He reached for the small bundle of dried wood and sage kept beside the fire pit. He knelt and stirred the coals with a carved stick. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, a soft glow, a breath of red, a single spark leaping like a tiny deer through grass. He cupped his hands around it, whispering a prayer. Not words for himself, but for the camp. Bless these coals. Keep their warmth alive. Bless this morning. Let it be gentle. He placed the wood onto the embers, and the fire grew, slowly, respectfully, a quiet bloom of light in the darkness. Smoke curled upward once more, slipping through the top of the teepee, carrying with it the scent of sage and sweetgrass. Its trail rose into the sky like a thin, pale ribbon, a message sent to the spirits of wind and dawn. The sky softens to blue. Outside, the darkness began to unravel. The stars dimmed, as though folding themselves back into the sky. The moon drifted lower, touching the tops of distant trees. The eastern edge of the sky, once black as obsidian, now softened to a deep, cold blue. Not yet sunlight, but the world could feel it coming. Children stirred in their sleep. Dogs shifted, their tails brushing softly against the snow. Even the river, wrapped in its frozen coat, seemed to sigh beneath the ice. This was the moment just before the sun touched the land. the moment when dreams still clung to the air, when the cold was sharpest, but hope was warmest. And slowly, softly, the morning began. The fire inside the teepee had faded into a deep bed of glowing embers, soft and breathing like the last warmth of the day. Its light flickered gently against the hide walls, casting slow-moving shadows that danced and then disappeared. Outside, the night stretched across the frozen plains like a vast blanket of silence. The snow no longer fell from the sky, yet its stillness remained, quiet, untouched, as if the earth itself were holding its breath. Most of the tribe slept, wrapped in buffalo hides and soft furs, their bodies curled close to the warmth of one another. Their breaths rose in gentle clouds, fading into the cool darkness above, yet the night was never left completely alone. One or two figures remained awake, seated quietly near the teepee entrance. They did not move much. They listened to the silence, to the wind, to the distant groan of ice shifting on the river. From time to time, one of them would lift the flap of the teepee and step outside. Snow crunched softly beneath their feet. Their breath turned to mist in the moonlight. Above them, the sky shimmered with stars, bright and cold, scattered across the heavens like shards of ice. The moon hung low, silver and calm, casting long shadows from the bare trees and the tall teepee poles that reached into the night. They stood there, unmoving, their silhouettes blending with the snow and the darkness. They were not guarding with weapons in hand, they were guarding with silence, with awareness, with presence. Their eyes traced the horizon where blackness met white. Their ears followed the sounds the night carried, the distant call of an owl, the soft sigh of the wind, the muffled shifting of snow on the branches. Not far from them, dogs slept lightly near the entrances of the shelters, curled tightly into themselves, ears flickering at even the smallest sound. Frost clung to their fur, yet they did not tremble. These animals were guardians too, loyal, alert, ready to rise before any danger reached the sleeping families within. A little farther, horses stood still, breath rising like smoke into the moonlight. Snow covered their backs in a thin, cold blanket, but they did not stir. Their presence was calm, steady, like stones beneath the stars. Beyond the circle of the camp, wolves walked in the distance. Their shapes moved along the tree line, silent, graceful, watching. Their voices sometimes rose into long, echoing howls that drifted across the frozen plains. But the people in the camp did not fear those voices. They understood them. They knew that the wolves, too, were creatures of the night, bound by the same laws of winter. Protect your own, survive the cold, respect the land. Inside the teepee, the fire whispered. Small pops of burning wood broke the silence now and then. A sleeper stirred, turning beneath their blanket, then settled again. A mother gently pulled a fur over her child, her hand lingering for a moment. The warmth of bodies and embers filled the air with a slow, comfortable rhythm. Sometimes the flames would flicker for no reason at all. They would bend, as though touched by a breath not felt by human skin. The people believed that in such moments, their ancestors walked quietly through the night, unseen but not unfelt. In the soft rustle of the teepee walls, in the sudden warmth of the air, in the hush that settled after a whisper of wind, they felt the presence of those who had come before. And so, the night passed. The guardians remained in their silent watch, The fire breathed slowly. The dogs dreamed with half-open ears. The horses stood like shadows beneath the stars, and the wolves sang to the moon from the dark edges of the forest. The cold surrounded everything, but it did not break the peace. One by one, even the watchers let their eyes fall closed, trusting in the night, trusting in the land, trusting in the spirits that lingered like unseen snowflakes on the air. Beneath the eternal stretch of stars, the people slept, safe in the heart of winter, guarded by silence, animals, ancestors, and the soft glow of the dying fire. The night deepened, and the stars seemed to draw closer to the earth, as though they leaned down to listen to the quiet breathing of the sleeping camp. Frost crept along the wooden poles of the teepees, forming delicate patterns like feathers of ice. The world was silent but not empty. It was full of quiet life, slow breaths, steady hearts, a gentle rhythm that only winter nights could hold. Within the warmth of the shelter, dreams drifted softly through the minds of the people. They did not come in flashes or storms. They came like snow, slow, silent, settling gently on the spirit. Some dreamed of walking through forests untouched by winter, where leaves still moved in warm wind and sunlight rested on mossy stones. Some saw the great buffalo herds running through green plains, hooves thundering across the earth like distant drums. Others dreamed of soaring far above the clouds, wings spread like eagles, the world below covered in white and silver. The elders said that dreams were not just images, they were journeys. When the body slept, the spirit walked, through mountains older than memory, across rivers that whispered the stories of the world, into places where ancestors waited, not with words, but with presence. The people believed that in dreams, one could receive guidance without hearing a voice, answers without asking a question. Outside, the guardians of the night sat quietly by the embers or stood near the edge of the camp. Their breath hung in the air like pale mist, vanishing into moonlight. Their eyes remained soft but alert, watching the horizon, listening to distant sounds, the shifting of river ice, the soft cry of an owl perched unseen in a tree, the distant crack of frozen wood bending beneath the cold. Far beyond the shelters, the wolves had fallen silent. They lay in the snow with their tails curled over their noses, eyes half closed but ears awake. Horses stood in place, heads lowered, their sides rising and falling in slow, even breaths. Dogs near the teepee doors slept lightly, paws twitching as though running in dreams. But if the wind shifted just slightly, they would lift their heads and listen. Time passed gently, every heartbeat blending into the next. The fire inside dwindled to glowing coals, soft red against the darkness. The smoke rose slowly through the top of the teepee, where it merged with the night, disappearing into the sky like a quiet prayer. Gradually, almost shyly, the sky began to change. It did not come with color at first, only with a faint lifting of darkness along the distant edge of the world. The stars, so brilliant only moments ago, began to fade, not in defeat, but in peaceful retreat. The moon lowered, sinking behind the far trees, leaving a pale silver trail along the snow. The guardians noticed it before anyone else, the way the darkness softened, the way the wind grew still, as if the sky was holding its breath before speaking. They did not wake the others. They watched silently as the first hint of dawn touched the frozen world. The dreams of the sleeping people deepened, like they sensed the world beginning to wake. Some felt warmth in their visions, sunlight on their faces, river water running cool over their hands. Some saw the spirits of ancestors turn and walk into the light, leaving only a gentle feeling behind, like a warm ember pressed into the heart. Outside, the shadows slowly loosened their grip. The air was still cold, sharp and clear, but there was a new softness to it. The kind of softness that meant morning was coming. A thin mist rose from the snow, moving like spirits over the ground. The trees stood in silent rows, their branches now painted with the faintest whisper of grey-blue light. One of the night watchers leaned down and placed a final piece of wood onto the quiet fire. The embers glowed brighter, as though grateful. A tiny flame flickered to life, stretching toward the morning. Deep within the teepee, a child stirred, turning beneath a fur blanket. A mother opened her eyes but did not speak. She listened. The world was still silent, but no longer in the way of night. It was the silence before the first bird sings, before the fire fully wakes, before the people step outside and greet the cold air with open eyes. The night was ending, but before it left, it breathed once more across the camp, cold, gentle, full of memory, and in that breath, the people slept peacefully, unaware that the sky had already begun its slow journey into morning. Outside, the camp was still. Frost coated the hides of the teepees, glittering like powdered stars. The horses stamped their hooves quietly, steam rising from their nostrils in slow clouds. The dogs stretched their limbs and yawned, shaking the snow from their fur before trotting around the camp to greet the day. In the distance, a raven called once, its voice clear and black against the soft sky. The people emerged from their shelters, wrapped in robes of fur and memory. Their breaths drifted into the air like prayer smoke. They did not speak loudly. Morning did not ask for noise. It asked for acknowledgement. They touched the earth with their hands, offering gratitude not just for warmth and fire, but for surviving another night beneath the vast, watching sky. Some carried water from the frozen stream, breaking the thin ice film with care. Others fed the horses, checking their coats for frostbite. A young boy placed fresh wood beside the fire pit and blew gently on the embers until the flames rose. Sparks lifted into the sky, carried by the wind like tiny orange spirits. The elders sat near the flames, quiet and thoughtful. They spoke softly to the young ones about the dreams they remembered, not to explain them, but to honor them. A dream of flowing water meant the spirit was searching for peace. A dream of fire meant change was near. A dream of snow meant patience, endurance, and trust in the land. Their voices were low, steady, like the rhythm of a river beneath ice. They reminded the children why they survived the cold when others could not. It was not strength alone. It was not only the fire or the buffalo hides. It was the way they listened to the wind, the way they watched the stars, the way they trusted the silence instead of fearing it. Winter was not an enemy. It was a teacher. And every night spent in its embrace was a lesson in humility, unity, and faith. They spoke of how the fire was not just heat, but memory, passed from one generation to the next. How the teepee was not only shelter, but a womb of earth and sky. How sleep was not just rest, but a journey inward to speak with what could not be seen. And so the morning grew brighter. The sun finally crested the far hills, spilling pale gold light across the snow. Shadows stretched long behind the tepees. The ice on the trees glittered like glass touched by fire. The wolves in the forest watched from afar, then turned back into the trees, silent as smoke. The people stood together in the open air, their faces warmed by the rising sun. Though winter would hold the land for many more moons, this moment belonged to light. They knew another night would come, cold and deep as the one before, but they no longer feared it. They had fire, they had each other. They had stories, dreams, and the memory of countless ancestors who once stood in the same snow, breathing the same icy air. As the smoke from the morning fire curled upward into the sky, it seemed to carry their gratitude with it. Thanks for the warmth that saved them, for the night that taught them, for the land that held them gently in its frozen hands. The day had begun. The earth had awakened. And beneath the endless winter sky, the people moved forward, quiet, strong, unbroken. They did not conquer the cold. They learned to sleep within it.